that we have on our. Hello, everyone. We hope that you are having a safe and healthy start to your 2021. And we're excited about this podcast. We're going to continue our 2021 Investor podcast series here with this week taking a deeper dive into the 4 remaining social networks that we have not yet talked about out of our 7 social networks that we service in our incubator. Those are GolfLink, CycleFans, Footpost, and RacketStar. Now, I am Ken Tapp. I'm the CEO of Social Life Network, and with me on the podcast today, I have Todd Markey. Let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who are new shareholders in our company, we're, of course, a niche industry social networking and e-commerce incubator. We provide our licensees, which are, of course, also the companies we incubate, with guidance from our experienced tech industry management team and the more than 200 industry advisors that we have on our team that also service all 7 of the industries that we support. Now, additionally, we provide the use of our AI and our blockchain-developed social networking platform, and this makes it easier, combined with our management team, for all of our licensees to have the opportunity to get to market faster, navigate some of the pitfalls and the speed bumps that are in those industries, and become more efficient. And then, of course, this in total, and also in theory, increases the probability of each of those companies reaching a liquidity event, such as an IPO or an acquisition. Now, you can review our business presentation deck off of our website. Just go to socialnetwork.ai to learn more. There's a link underneath Investors at the top that says Presentation Deck. Click on that, and it'll give you a deeper dive into our business model. Now, like I mentioned a minute ago, we have Todd Markey, who is one of our directors at Social Life Network, on the podcast with me today. How's it going, Todd?
It's going quite well. It's a pleasure to join you again here today, Ken. Thanks for having me.
You got it.
I also wanted to thank everyone for participating. Of course, I hope everyone's having a great day and their 2021 is off to a great start. I'm really excited for this year, and of course, we think it's going to be a really big year for all of our social networks that we service and our licensees, due in large part to the results of social distancing measures that are likely to stay with us through most of the year, which is a benefit to our business. According to a report from National Federation just this last Friday, January 15th, sports goods stores in the U.S. saw a sharp increase of over 15.3% in online sales during 2020. And on top of these categories that have seen this increase, camping, fishing, hunting, golfing, cycling, racket sports, and field sports are just a few of the top 10 that are leading these categories, as the shift in this world has caused these interests to gain huge popularity. Included in this top 10, running, water, snow sports, just many of the industries that we continue to service and continue to enter.
Yeah, it's first of all, it's pretty cool to have 7 of the top 10 categories covered with just 5 of our sports networks that we service. And we are looking at, and most likely will launch networks this year in 2021 that cover those additional industries, running and the water and the snow sports. It's also possible we're looking into launching a couple additional sports networks, likely in auto racing and the extreme sports, X Games type sports. And so we'll, of course, that's the beautiful part about having this podcast every couple of weeks, is we're able to keep everybody up to date on things that we're doing, things we're thinking about doing, and then, of course, the things that we do. Stay tuned every few weeks for these podcasts. I'm going to start out, Todd, if it's all right with you, I'm going to discuss the GolfLink network. It's a pretty cool positioning that we have in the golf industry, and we do believe that GolfLink has the power to change the world of the golf industry. It's, of course, been around forever, and so to change something like that is a big, bold statement. But GolfLink as a social network, I think, can accomplish that. It's, of course, reported that There are more than, 60 million golfers worldwide that participate at golf courses. There's 24.3 million of those golfers just here in the United States alone that use golf courses. And then, by the way, there's another 9.9, so almost 10 million people here in the U.S. who participate exclusively in off-golf course activities. That was almost a tongue twister, but like driving ranges, indoor golf simulators, golf entertainment venues. Like here in the U.S., we have Top Golf and Drive Shack. There are similar things that I've experienced in other countries around the world that are driving range on steroids, if you will. And so that's still another big part of the industry. In the United States alone, the annual economic impact on the golf industry is huge. It's $84 billion, and that provides about 1.9 million jobs and about $59 billion in wages. So a pretty significant part of our economy as it relates to sports. And in addition, the golfing events golfing events contribute to more charity organizations and being able to raise capital or raise money for charities than any other major sports industry here in the U.S. So it's not just significant to the big box stores and not just significant to the players, but it's also significant to all of those charities and the people who benefit from golf tournaments raising capital for them. So it's a big deal.
Certainly. Sorry to cut you off there, too. I think it's fair to say that those who love golf. And socially connecting this audience can only lead to greater inspiration, better tournament participation, increased unity in the golf sector, and increased awareness for these charitable contributions, as you mentioned. So that's something that can be a real positive outcome of some of the capabilities that we're going to offer this industry. We've built this technology that empowers golf social network platform users to have this online marketplace, product review, tournament streaming, to be able to manage charitable contributions and capabilities to sponsor driven brands through these mobile apps, all in a singular go-to social network. It makes it seamless and easy to share, learn, connect, and it will give us the ability to monetize, which of course is great for our shareholders.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So if you're listening out there, this is a big deal. All of our sports verticals are really big deals as it relates to shareholder value. And of course, each of these companies growing and reaching that liquidity point. And cycling is a little bit similar in the sense that it too is one of those sports, Todd, that has a lot of connection to charity organizations and whatnot. Cycle Fans, of course, if you don't already know, is our cycling social network. And of course, like golf, we believe that it too has the power to change the world of how the cyclists and enthusiasts and teams, event managers, coaches, charity organizations, everybody connects together and comes together. And here in the U.S., and other countries too, but here in the U.S., just in the last number of years, indoor biking studios has become a really big deal. And then, of course, that just has this domino effect to those same folks going out and buying a bike and getting out on the roads and the paths and the streets and participating in those charity events and helping out those organizations. There's about 1 billion bicyclists worldwide. Of that total number, about 47.8, almost 48 million cyclists just here in the United States alone. And in addition to the current estimated U.S. bike market, which is $81 billion annually, another big marketplace, we've estimated that it's generating about 770,000 jobs here in the U.S. and about $10 billion in tax revenues, which is extremely significant. And we don't know what that number is across the world, but if we were just to assume that cycling is equally as important to many of the other world economies, then we can start to multiply that number. And so pretty exciting stuff. And as we get further along into our networks here, there's not a huge leap between cycling and racket sports too. Oftentimes a lot of those people carry over between the two sports, especially for the exercise aspect of it. Todd, why don't you talk a little bit about our Racket Star network?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a seamless transition because one important theme is that every one of these verticals has real enthusiasts and a real following. And I think that overall, that is who we're here to serve. The fast-growing popularity in racket sports can be seen everywhere. And we really believe that RacketStar has the power to change this community and enhance this community all over the world, connecting players, allowing participation in tournaments, getting fans all together in one network, a racket sports social network, is something that will be really powerful. And Ken, quite frankly, I know that this is something that does resonate with me a little bit. I've taken a real interest in pickleball, which many people have said is the fastest growing sport in America. And there's a worldwide audience for this that here in the States we don't really recognize all the time. But sports like tennis, badminton, ping pong, pickleball, as I mentioned, racquetball, squash, continue to grow in popularity, and social connecting this audience is once again going to lead to huge inspiration and growth, and it creates big opportunities for us.
Yeah, I'm another one. I'm in the same camp that you're in with regard to pickleball, and that's the interesting part about racket sports in general. When we launched this network many years ago, the first thing we were focused on obviously was tennis, right? Tennis is big here in the United States. And then as we started to expand outside the United States, we were not necessarily surprised, but became more enthusiastic is a better way to describe it about badminton and ping pong, especially in Southeast Asia. If you can pick different parts of the world, you're going to see a different audience that's really enthusiastic about the different types of racket sports. And pickleball is just one of these interesting examples of how just in the last handful of years, it has gone from just this interesting, what is that sport, to now everybody is playing it, especially those that don't have the knees that they used to have when they were younger, and it was easier for them to bounce around on a tennis court. So it's a really cool industry, and we've developed technology that really empowers all of these things, from pickleball to tennis, badminton, and squash, and so on and so forth. And to be able to watch that network grow through the use of live streaming video and the product reviews and how the platform is being used by tournament management professionals that help out the tournaments. Todd, there's hundreds and hundreds of tournaments that happen every year in these different categories. And believe it or not, there's really no tournament technology out there that helps these coordinators manage the tournament play and the brackets, and even more importantly, connect all of that together with sponsors. And so many times those sponsors are local sponsors. And so to be able to provide those local sponsors with a place that they can get great exposure locally is even more important for these tournaments. And let's not forget the charity tournaments that are out there too. So it just has this cascading effect in the entire industry. And it's pretty cool for us to be part of that and help these people on one platform seamlessly share and learn and connect and monetize the industry.
Absolutely. And it's a great and fun industry. Obviously, as it relates to pickleball, it's a little bit more of a growing niche sport, as some may refer to it. And helping out grow popularity and exposure to that is fun. Participating, for instance, in another sport or industry that we're all familiar with, that we all know is the biggest in the world scale, is the industry of soccer or football, as they refer to it internationally. And of course, our network, being Footpost, really can help to connect things on an international level. It can also help connect the youth players, coaches, stay together all on one social network. Surprising that there's not something out there right now with a 3.4 billion worldwide audience and growing rapidly. Those numbers even might have been dated from the 2018 World Cup. We believe that once again, this is an audience that we can really help to connect, and really there's a powerful opportunity to monetize this network in a unique way. Ken, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's cool from my point of view. I'm always going to come at it with a little bit of a tech/nerd talk. And we developed that platform and all of the sports platforms so that they can integrate with other systems that might be out there. And here in the U.S., if you're a parent here and you've got kids, that baseball and basketball and football and so many others, these are lacrosse, these are big sports. They've always been big sports. But soccer has really come onto the scene in the last, say, 15, 20 years and is as big, if not bigger, than some of these other their sports. And as we've seen technology, be it mobile apps and other platforms out there, try to embrace all of these little league sports, these youth sports in the last 10 or 15 years, there's a few that have risen to the top. You know, you've got Team Snap. They're big. Yeah. In fact, they're out of Colorado, and they've got Sports Engine and so many others. Yeah. So it's pretty cool to have our platform connect with those platforms and really be able to help these kids, these youth, their parents, their soccer coaches, and the leagues and the clubs in general come together and make things more efficient for them. And look, the most important part, especially for Footpost, but for really any of our networks that embraces these niche industries for sports that bring the kids off of Facebook and on away from that kind of white noise and that kind of negative influence and the things that happen on those networks like bullying and so on and so forth, and into a nice, safe environment like we have in Footpost is just an extra benefit for us. We're excited about being able to provide a technology solution for some of the things that parents have to deal with as it relates to those things. Pretty cool stuff. I hope that this brief overview was educational for all of our shareholders that are listening. So what we will now do, now that part's done, is in the coming podcast, each podcast every other week moving forward, we will do a deeper dive into each of the networks. Now, the next one, we're really going to get in to the weeds, no pun intended, for the cannabis industry, for MJ Link. And I think that the timing is going to be really critical for that because we've got a new administration here in the United States that's going into office this next week. And the industry itself, those people at these associations and those that lobby on Capitol Hill here in the U.S. are expecting in the first month or so a lot of news to come out about the cannabis industry that's going to give it a big shot in the arm. And so we're excited about being able to get a little bit deeper into those kind of things in the next podcast. And then we'll do the same thing with each of the networks as we progress through the rest of the first quarter and into the second quarter. So on that note, let's switch gears, Todd. We, of course, get questions that get emailed over to us every week. And I wanted to address some of those questions. And as we get into addressing those questions, I just want to remind all of our shareholders how things work. I, of course, have pushed you towards our website to make certain that you're getting your news and update and information there. And obviously, you need to go through our corporate presentation deck to really understand how we make money and how we add value to the company so that shareholders get to see that value and participate in that value. So as a recap, Social Life Network, we do receive 15% of the stock position in each of our licensees that we incubate as they reach those liquidity events, be it an IPO or an acquisition by somebody else. And after listening to today's podcast, you can probably arrive at this, that whether you're talking about racket sports or soccer, golf or cycling or any of the other sports networks that we're looking to eventually get launched, these are all going to be very valuable on the acquisition side by big box sporting goods stores, whether you're talking about those here in the United States, like Dick's Sporting Goods Stores or Big Five or Gander Mountain or even Walmart, who generate quite a bit of retail revenue off of the sale of sporting good products. So know that these networks, these other networks, though they might not have in your mind the sizzle that the cannabis industry does right now, or the enormous market share that the hunting, fishing, and camping industry has, as well as the real estate industry has with our Like RE platform, these are still platforms that are very appealing to be acquired by big box sporting goods stores, and that is part of our strategy that we help our licensees with, is positioning those networks to reach that type of liquidity event for those networks. So on that note, let's move right into a couple of the questions. So Todd, One of the questions that I want to respond to that we got just this last week was, are we planning on taking Social Life Network public on NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange or any other exchanges that are out there? And the answer is not in 2021 as far as planning on it. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't reserve the right to make that pivot or that shift, but we're not planning on it in 2021. Instead, we're really going into 21 and 2022 focused on providing the support for the 3 licensees that right now are working on their own IPOs. That's MJ Link and LikeRE and HuntPost. And of course, each one of those is being done through a Reg A Tier 2 offering. The second question that we have here, so hopefully that answered the first one. Second question that we have here, and maybe you want to take this one, Todd, because I think you touched on it in our last podcast as it related to the amount of debt that we have left.
Yeah. On our last podcast on January 4th, we noted that we had $111,000 of debt left per the 8K that we filed on December 31st. So to reiterate that, as of October 1st, 2019, the company reported $677,151 of convertible notes. Through a combination of debt and pay down of the note conversion, the convertible debt plus accrued interest was reduced by $370,986 by September 30th, 2020. Additional convertible debt plus accrued interest was reduced from October 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020, resulting in convertible debt liability of just $111,351,000.
All right.
Another question that we had was about share buyback. Will we be doing a type of share buyback in 2021? And we answered this, it's maybe. We talked about this. We have the option to do so. It's something that we put on the table and had been mentioned since the December podcast that the board's looking into in 2021. And that will be driven by what kind of share price and how the progress is doing with MJ Link's licensee and the Reg A offering.
Yeah, it's obviously these are like the gears in a watch, and they move together. And we have mentioned in previous podcasts and press releases and that sort of thing that we really believe that the value of Social Life Network is greater than what the market cap is right now. And we've mentioned what we believe the market cap should be based on what our internal valuations are on each of these licensees. But that's a difficult thing for any venture capital firm or incubator or anyone else to try to really match that up with what's out there. Gosh, look at like Kleiner Perkins. They've got their Airbnb IPO. They were valuing that thing just a month ago before Airbnb went public at half the price that it ended up peaking at after a few days of trading. So it's just an example of how these things don't always match up on the upside or the downside with those market caps. So just keep that stuff in consideration if you're listening as a shareholder, that we have our internal valuation on these. And then, of course, there's just what the public market is going to value these things at. And obviously, for us, it is incredibly important to get MJ Link as well as the other networks up through these liquidity events so that those numbers, those IPO numbers, can relate back to the valuation inside of Social Life Network. And if it doesn't match up, and there's a huge discount here for us to go back and buy shares off the open market on Social Life Network because it's undervalued, then of course we're going to do something like that. So we just have to see how things unfold. I know that when we get these kind of questions, the shareholders may want us to divulge as much information as we can about what we think we're going to do in the coming months or quarters or years. And in our case, in our business model, because we're not a pharmaceutical company that's trying to get a drug produced and passed and out there, and we're not a mining company that's expecting to produce X amount of mined ore on a quarterly basis. We are instead an incubator, and we are working with these companies that all have a flex and when they're going to reach their liquidity event. And we can only, from an internal point of view, estimate or guesstimate the value on those. as they equate to our own efforts internally. And then when they finally reach that point, I think that's when shareholders, public shareholders, have a really good idea of, gosh, this stock's way undervalued, or who knows, maybe it's overvalued at the time. We have no idea what the stock's going to do in the future. But we do plan on continuing to provide this kind of transparency and information every few weeks, so all of you who are listening can have a really good idea of our progress and where things are going.
And I think that you took the words right out of my mouth there, the level of communication and transparency that I know that we get plenty of response and feedback from our audience and shareholders, and it's nothing but appreciation for that level of honesty and the way that we continue to communicate what's going on internally. So on that note, for anyone out there listening, make sure that you stay tuned and keep receiving the message that we are giving you directly, and not buy into anything that might be going on or floating around out there on message boards, for instance. So that on that note, I'll respond to a few questions, a number of questions that have been coming in as it relates to MJ Link. Would they acquire certain cannabis-related companies or somehow connected to advisors or board members? And the short answer to that is, unless we file an 8K announcing such business dealings, then do not listen to this speculation that's out there. We will communicate with you everything that you need to know, and make sure that you do your due diligence when doing your research and looking into this information.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm just going to add to that. By the way, I'm assuming that everybody who's listening has gone through our MJ Link Reg A filing. And if you haven't, then certainly you want to check this company out. You want to go to mjlink.com/invest. Tell your friends and your family and your coworkers and everybody else about it as well, because we think it's a fantastic offering right now through the Reg A. But if you go through the filing, it shows right in there in the business model that through funds that are acquired in that offering, it is planning on going out and doing these type of acquisitions in the cannabis and hemp industry for tech companies. That's the whole model, is a roll-up, as well as, of course, continuing to grow out its own audience. Think about this for a second, folks. We're talking about a network that has 5.5 plus million users in a network that there are many other tech companies out there that could really benefit from that audience. And so this is the model, and we always want people to make certain that they're completely in tune with the business models that each of the networks that we are incubating have. Todd, on that note, I'm going to hand it off to you to take us over the finish line with the podcast.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Obviously, you can tell that we're really excited about everything that we have going on within the company and all of our sports social networks, along with our current Reg A's and potential future IPOs. Ken, just real quick before we wrap, I just want to put a bow tie on our discussion regarding MJ Link, because we've had so many questions that have been coming through about the general cannabis industry. And now that the Congress has narrowly been controlled by the Democrats, what does that mean? What can we expect? And what are your thoughts?
I think it's all good stuff. I could rant on here for another hour, I can imagine. But for one, we plan on in 2 weeks really getting into the details on how that's going to relate to the cannabis industry, that you're going to see a lot more on the marijuana reform policies. You're going to see some governor devices that have been imposed on the industry really dating back to the 70s during the Nixon presidential administration get removed. And that's going to, as far as our shareholders are concerned, it's going to open up the floodgates for investment capital to come flooding into the industry. And all of these private as well as public companies in the industry is going to really receive a huge boost